Hello, everybody. Welcome to Commander's Pod. This is Duncan,
I'm Sloan.
I'm Jeff.
and together we make up the cast. Today, we're going to talk about a few topics. We're going to go over our predictions for Outlaws of Thunder Junction, which is coming out in about a month. They only have a few spoilers for it, so gives us something to work off, but not too much. First, though, we're going to talk about things that don't do what you think they do. And not all of you may be making these mistakes, but I think some people are. Most of these are mistakes one or all of us sitting here have made at one time or another. Today's is about creating tokens and replacement effects and kind of like how that changes. So specifically the instance that I have seen matter is with tapped tokens. When something creates like a tapped treasure or something like that, or a tapped food or whatever, and Academy manufacturer that says that when you create a treasure, a food, or a clue, you create all three instead. So I think most people think, okay, it's a replacement effect. That's what I understand about it. So it's replacing the original. Therefore, the new, let's say it was going to make a tapped treasure, and the new treasure, food, and clue are going to come in untapped because it's replacing the original tapped treasure. And while it replaces what and how many are being created, it does not replace the state of how they come in.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the big mistake there is, like you were saying, it's, oh, well, these are being replaced by these new ones, and therefore the effect no longer applies. But unfortunately, that is not the case. And even furthermore, there are multiple replacement effects too that sometimes go on the stack when it comes to creating tokens. So that's another thing that you then have to navigate through and make sure you're doing correctly, is ordering the replacement effects. Because I bring this up, we played a game recently where that happened, and we were trying to figure out how many tokens of which kinds of tokens one of the players would create. And when we looked it up, essentially what happens is the owner of the replacement effects chooses the order in which the replacement effects take place. So the classic example for this was Peregrine and Manufacturer, Academy Manufacturer is the name of the card, and they're both replacement effects. And so when you're going to create these tokens, you have to make sure you're doing it in the correct order. So Academy Manufacturer, if you would create a clue, food, or treasure token, instead create one of each, and that's a artifact creature 3-drop. 1/3, and then the Peregrine Took from the Lord of the Rings set, 2 and a green, says if one or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus an additional food token are created instead.
So in the example we saw, Sloan and I together, it was paired with Samwise that said whenever you move to combat, at the beginning of your combat, you create a food.
Right. And what would happen is then, because the Academy manufacturer, that replacement then go on the stack. And then with Peregrine, because now you're creating another food token, and so we were trying to figure out how the loop worked, because the way the player was explaining it was, well, technically it makes infinite tokens then, and you're just sitting there perpetually creating tokens. But we found out that's not how it works.
No.
Because replacement effects, in a way, use the stack. So you put them in order of how you want them to resolve, and then you resolve them in that order. And so I actually, to clarify, looked up a 3-card combo for this to kind of explain how ordering them correctly gets you the most benefit. So Peregrine and Academy Manufacturer, 2 of the cards, and then the last card is Zorn, which is a red 2 and a red elemental creature, and it says if you create a treasure token, you create twice as many treasure tokens instead. So what happens is, if you were to order it, Peregrine, Academy Manufacturer, Zorn, the original token wasn't a clue, food, or a treasure. You will make an original token plus 1 clue, 1 food, and 2 treasures. Then if you ordered it, if the original token was a clue or a food, applying the abilities will get you 2 clues, 2 foods, and 3 treasures if you do it Peregrine, Academy Manufacturer, and Zorn, with one of them being a clue or food. And then lastly, If the original was a treasure, you would order it Zorn Peregrine Manufacturer, and that would allow you to get 3 of each instead. So knowing how to stack it and how the abilities stack with each other and resolving them correctly
Right.
gets
And then,
very, sticky.
yeah, well, especially with the new release of the Fallout set, one of the cards that everybody's playing with now is Nuka-Cola Machine. Nuka-Cola Machine, you pay 1, you tap it, I believe. You pay 1, you tap it, and it creates a tapped food token. That's the main point of this. So with Academy Manufactor, all the tokens that come in will be tapped because
Right.
the original, it copies the original state. So while it's replacing what is being created, it doesn't
Replace the state in which
right.
they enter.
So they come in tapped.
And that would have a huge effect on the game,
Right.
especially
time.
with treasure tokens.
Right. And so that right there is kind of again why the intricacies of understanding sometimes what what your combo is supposed to do and how cards interact can maybe then realize, well, maybe I'm going to cut this card because it's not as good, because essentially the advantage of treasures is that they usually come in untapped. You can immediately use them to cast more spells. With it coming in tapped, you're now, you're netting a mana, but you're waiting a whole turn to have to use it unless you have something that allows to be untapped or
Like Amulet of Vigor is a simple solution.
It's still amazing though.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not going to get to use it that turn. Someone could, of course, fare well or something terrible. But
Right.
in general, it's
It
still
also can
an
be maybe
amazing
you don't
turn.
put in the Amulet of Vigor, because I have seen some of the Samwise Frodo decks that are, I mean, I'd put them not CDH, but they're definitely super high tier. Like they can just be pumping out. So maybe not putting that Amulet of Vigor as a way to keep your deck kind of lower powered and kind of keep it more fair, so everybody has a turn to respond to the fact that you just on your turn created like 20 of everything.
Yeah, I think that's probably smart. And the other thing that's really interesting about what you guys are talking about is this is not competitive. We don't play competitive Commander very often. Sometimes you guys do tournaments and stuff like that, but mostly this is casual. So when you're sitting down with that person who thinks he's got an infinite loop, it's helping that person understand, talking through it with them, helping them do it the right way, learning together. It's actually a really cool process when you're casual about it and you're just having fun learning about the game, and it's not a gotcha moment. I think there are some people that probably play it like a gotcha moment, and I would encourage them that they're missing out on a lot of the fun of just helping someone understand something. And then also learning these things. Duncan has done a really good job of he has a heart and a desire to understand these sort of interactions. Having someone like Duncan around who can help you understand things is a lot of fun too. So, becoming someone who understands these interactions makes you pretty integral to any group or shop.
Well, and I think a lot of times people's initial reactions to these moments where somebody does something wrong, right? I see it all the time in the shops. Somebody's like, no, you're doing that wrong, you dummy. Not calling them names necessarily, but like really like drilling down, you don't know what you're doing, you're ruining the game, whatever, and getting upset about it, not just thinking at some point they were that person.
Yeah, the nerd paradox, right? That when you walk into that specialty store and that dude's giving you like vibes of you're an idiot because you don't understand some like niche situation. Sorry, we got editor moving mics. It's good. Some niche situation, and it can make you feel stupid. And we can do that in Magic too.
Yeah.
Just because someone doesn't understand this interaction doesn't mean they're dumb. It's confusing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like this game is simple by any means. I mean, it's every single time they come out with a new set now, they're adding new rules and new interactions. I mean, I think the last couple of podcasts we were talking about how, Magic just makes this game so simple to understand, and it's just such a breeze that anyone can pick it up. But, obviously that's not true.
Well, it is, and I've said this before, and it just chuckles my soul to know this. We're playing the most complicated game in the world.
Yeah.
As analyzed by computers and decided that of all the games, this is the most complicated.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where it almost seems like the better you get at it, the harder it becomes to play, because you're wanting to advance your knowledge on how to do certain things and make your decks better and finding new combos and new cards come out. And so it's almost like if you were to, just play it in the most simplistic way and just kind of be like, oh, I built this mono white soldier deck because it's fun. And then, down the road, you decide to beef it up a little bit, and then you beef it up again. And then as you get deeper and deeper into it, you find more and more combos and cards and rules that you have to make sure you're understanding and doing triggers. Or, it becomes a little bit of a circus. But at the end of the day, it is fun. And I think Jeff's right. Being able to help guide people and getting them to understand better, what they're doing and what their combinations are that they're trying to do. And, even explain to them, because again, sometimes like Jeff said, someone might think I have an infinite combo right now. And it's like, actually you don't. And here's why you don't. I'll kind of help walk you through it, that's something that, like Duncan said, we've all been guilty of probably this segment here where we talk about this doesn't work the way you think it does. We've all been guilty of doing it wrong, which is why we're talking about it. And we're trying to explain to people the way it actually works.
Yeah.
So,
And remember, that person may have done a lot of study online. They may have spent hours picking out cards from their collection, buying cards online, building this deck. Some people have, 5, 6 decks. Some people have 1 or 2 decks. And so you get to that situation and you're thinking, well, I'm just playing a game. But what you don't realize is that they've invested hours and days into building this thing. And if you don't handle it gently, it can be really discouraging to a Magic player to find out that they don't know what their deck is doing.
yeah.
And so having that idea where you're like, hey, it doesn't do exactly what you think it does, but it does some really awesome stuff. Watch what we can do with it and celebrate what it can do. That can be encouraging. So just, take those moments to make it still fun.
Or even helping them actually find the combo they thought they had and helping them actually get to it, saying, no, it's actually these cards that would do what you're asking.
Exactly.
Well,
Yes.
and let's talk about too. Wizards and judges have all made contributions to how these things work that a lot of them aren't intuitive and sometimes contradict a previous rule that seems like it's very similar. So there's a lot going into this. We talked about Andrew before in the kill Andrew first sense, which still holds true. But regardless, Andrew was a judge for many years. He paid for the certification and got the official judge. So he is usually in my other play group who we go to figure out some of this stuff. And even he has trouble sometimes with these new rules and because a lot of this stuff doesn't get worked out till the first time it comes out in a tournament setting. And then the judges basically decide how this is going to work going forward.
Right.
I would not want that job. But so that can make for some interesting rulings, but that's what, they try and be fair and we have to have some rule of how this works without breaking the game. And that's the thing. Just because somebody could find something that's never been specified before, if it might break the game, the judges aren't going to say, oh no, yeah, you broke Magic, good job, now we can't play anymore. They make a ruling to where, no, it's not going to break the game, this is how it actually works. And then later Wizards can decide whether or not that's official going forward, but they have to make a ruling in the moment. But so anyway, it can get a little aggravating is my point. Jeff, you've never been aggravated, have you?
No, never get aggravated.
Never, not Jeff.
One of the things that, so we got this segment, what's aggravating me? One of the things that aggravates me is I always hear people complain about there's not a card shop in my area, right? And I might be guilty of that too. But what's frustrating is opening a card shop is not easy. Running a business is not easy. Being profitable, paying taxes, figuring out what to buy, what to sell, how to end up with money at the end of the day, all that's very challenging. And some people are taking a pretty big risk with the money they've saved to go and try and do that. And it frustrates me to no end. It truly aggravates me. Not like, in a silly way that some of my aggravations are, but this truly upsets me when I see people visit card shops, take advantage of the opportunity they've been given to play with other people, and then not purchase a single thing. And it doesn't mean you necessarily have to purchase something every time, though I tend to be of the mindset that you should probably purchase something. I mean, a soda, for heaven's sakes, you could purchase from some of these shops. Do something. Because you are coming into sort of a unwritten contract when you enter through that door, that you understand that you're entering into a place that needs to be able to turn a profit to stay open. And if you don't help do that, the good stores will close. And we've all been at stores that aren't good stores, right? You're wondering how this person stays in business and they don't have good customer service and, you know, they're maybe not even happy to be there. Yeah. So we've got to support the good stores. I understand a lot of people don't have a lot of money, but if you're going to go and be there, find a way, put some money aside.
Well, and so we have some people that play at my local store that really do not have money. We've even had, I think I might have mentioned this once before, we had a homeless guy that was playing there for a while. I don't know how a homeless guy can play Magic, but he had cards.
Okay.
Huh?
He had cards.
No, I mean, he had cards. Maybe he had always had them from before he was homeless. I don't know his story, but he would play there. So I understand some people can't, but like you said, soda at that store is 50 cents, you know, maybe you can't afford the 50 cents every time. One time, please. You know, and then the other thing is they allow people to bring in like meals because we're there, you know, 4, 5, 6 hours, whatever, 8 hours, however long we're playing there. They understand people need to eat. So they'll allow people to bring in food, but they do have snacks there and they do have beverages there, water, sodas, Gatorade, that sort of thing.
Right.
So what bothers me though is when people take advantage of the fact that they're allowed to bring in food and bring in the same food that they're selling. Right.
So this is a dual aggravated section.
So
all right, we got Duncan on board for being aggravated.
Oh
too.
no, I think this is a good thing you brought up because they bring in the same things they're selling and now they're so you were able to afford this stuff. You didn't want to pay the store's prices because they don't get these things from a distributor. They go to like Sam's Club, they buy them in bulk, they get them as cheap as they can and try and make some money off it. You know, they're not trying to gouge you in most instances.
No, 50 cents is very reasonable. That's probably too low.
So, you know, these things, that bothers me. Like if your argument is you can't afford, that's fine. You know, everybody brings in their meals, that's fine. But when I bring in my meal, I buy my drinks.
Also, you know? I don't buy it. You're playing with decks that are $100, $200, $300. I see people who say they don't have money. They got an $800 deck. If you're proxying everything and you truly don't have money, all right, I get it. No problem. I'll buy you a drink. I'll buy you a soda. Matter of fact, when I've gone to the shop multiple times, most people buy things for other people. They're very generous. And I think that's amazing. That's something to be very encouraged about. The generosity I see in the shop a lot it's always mind-boggling to me. I think it's awesome. But you know, don't roll up with an $800 deck and then say I can't afford a 50-cent soda. That's nonsense.
Right. Well, and the thing is, so the guys that run my local shop, Mystic Forge Games in Port Charlotte, Florida, if anybody ever
Great shop,
wants to support them, I fully support that because they have been great to us. But anyway, they understand which clients can and can't spend money. And I've heard them say, no, it's not a big deal. But I have seen those people that can't afford then share what they brought with the guys who can afford, but now don't need to because you're sharing. So just be aware that, well, if you are in that special situation, you only were able to afford the pre-con and it took you 3 years to build it up to something beyond a pre-con just because you had to save money. I get it. That's fine. But remember that they're trying to make
buy the pre-con or the car. Like if you're trying to save up for it, right? Buy it from the shop. If that's the only thing you get to buy.
I think they did in this instance.
Yeah, so
but I'm saying, but be cognizant of the fact that that's not going to support them over that 3 years it took you to get your deck to where you want it. And they know that you can't afford it, but don't then bring enough snacks for your whole table to eat because let them buy their snacks. Help support the shop.
I think, 100%. And I think at the end of it, what we're saying is understand the place you're at needs to turn a profit. Like, it's very easy for us to think about our finances and not to think about the person behind the counter's finances.
Exactly.
Just please be a little thoughtful to those guys. Another shop that does a really good job, Dark Side Games, they're fantastic. They have a beautiful shop up in Sarasota. Again, you got to support them. If we want these places to stay and grow and get better and offer us more, we got to help them do that.
Well, and I also don't want, so if anybody listening to us feels like we're targeting them or tagging them, I don't think that people, for the most part, do this intentionally. I don't think they're thinking about it. They're not thinking about it from the right perspective. And we're just trying to make you aware. This is a business that they're trying to make money so that they can keep providing you this space, keep providing you this opportunity. And I don't think most people realize how lucky they are. Port Charlotte, which is not a big town, now has 3 Magic stores.
Yeah.
But there was a time we had 0.
Yeah, like Venice.
Yeah.
Venice right now has
Venice
0.
Still
I
has
don't
0.
think we'll ever have one.
Right.
Unfortunately.
I mean, there have been some that tried, but people didn't support them. People didn't go in and spend the money.
Yeah.
You know, and part of it's because you mentioned Darkside. They're so big. People have gotten so used to going there. They're going to keep going. That's where they're used to going. It's where they feel comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, so there is a little bit of like that in there. But when you have that shop, it is a special thing. Even if you live in a major city that might have like a dozen or more shops, the one you like, try and remember why you like it and remember that you're helping to support it. Anything you can do, even that one soda you buy every once in a while helps. And remember that if you aren't able to financially help, don't financially hinder. Don't then, like I said, bring snacks, share with everybody so they're not buying stuff, you know, or at least be wary of, you know, sharing's great, but be wary of don't take business away that they could be getting.
Yeah. And then also don't forget that the person behind the counter is a person too. Get to know them, talk to them, be nice to them. I see that happen at the Port Charlotte shop for sure. So just keep doing that. Remember those guys need to do well to keep doing it.
And funny thing, as I said, Port Charlotte is not a small town. I guarantee anybody outside of this immediate area probably has never even heard of the town. But what I love about my shop is they're hustlers, right? They go for that business. I don't know if you guys even know, they went to MagicCon Chicago. They were one of the vendors at MagicCon Chicago. So there are some people out there, you know, from all over that have now run into my shop. That gives me a great sense of pride, but they're only able to do those things because in the beginning we did have a lot of people in our store that spent the money and supported them.
Yeah. So that's what's been aggravating me is the idea that the local shop, and by the way, guys, it's getting harder and harder for them every day.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Wizards
try to
does
compete
not
against,
make it easy on them.
Well, yeah, and Amazon's huge. It's very hard to compete. TCG Player, Card Kingdom,
Walmart and Target.
Yeah, Walmart and Target. They have a lot of competition. Please help the local shop stay alive.
Right. Just one last word on this too. One thing that I found myself doing, and I had to really think about myself and stop, is I'd go online and I'd buy the stuff because it was cheaper. And I'd still spend money there, but I'm like, in my head, I'm like, well, I'm still spending money there. But I really tried to stop doing that because I'd rather spend a little bit more to keep my shop in business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll still get to buy things online because there's stuff they're not going to have.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, I think that's a really good one, Jeff. I totally agree. So our main topic of the day is the upcoming Outlaws of Thunder Junction. And like I said, they revealed a few cards, not very many at this point. I think it's like 8, and shown some lands and stuff. But we're going to today try and make some predictions or maybe some wants that we want to see out of this. I think this is a really unique set. I think it's a neat setting. I think it's something, it may not be the first thing that you would think of when you think of Magic with cowboys and Western theme.
Right.
But I do think it's something that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, when we went over what we're doing for this episode, and I looked through the releases, my initial kind of knee-jerk thing is like they're just kind of pulling from anywhere they can to try to, get whatever they can out of anybody. So the kind of cowboy thing, like you said, was a little. It seems off the cuff. It seems a little out of left field, however you want to put it. But the cards that they've released and leaked so far, spoiled, however you want to say it, they're pretty cool. And they're bringing a new mechanic, which, again, I think
we
they're
needed
on this,
another one of those.
Yeah, I think they're on this, let's bring a new mechanic every set kind of train right now. And so the new mechanic is called Commit a Crime, which a lot of these cards will have. So real quick, I looked it up to see if they had an official description of it, which they do. So committing a crime is going to be targeting opponents, anything they control and or cards in their graveyard is a crime.
Or their library or...
Right. So when you do specifically spells that do targeting, you're going to be committing a crime. And the reason why it's important to know is because a lot of the cards that they spoiled, that we're going to read a couple of them, talk about committing a crime. So just keep that in mind. That's what they're referring to when they say that. And again, this is going to be a new mechanic. And
to clarify, even if you are doing something beneficial, If you target a
Right.
creature and make it indestructible, that's there.
Plus 3/3 or
Yeah, you still committed a crime.
You
And
have
is it
committed a crime.
targeting someone else's stuff?
It has to be somebody else.
Yeah,
So-
it has to be specifically somebody else's, an opponent's is the exact wording. Commit a crime. Targeting opponents, anything they control and or cards in their graveyard is a crime.
So I'm actually really impressed with that mechanic, because what that mechanic is going to encourage is interaction.
Right.
And something we see in Commander going away is interaction.
Sometimes, yeah.
You see a lot of people playing like just board wipes, like we'll just start the game over type stuff. And to see people play more interaction, I think, or to encourage it, I think is going to be really important. I'm actually really excited about
Well,
that.
and
mechanic.
it also, just kind of thinking off the top of my head, their wording is going to mean, so there's two-headed giant commander and things like that. So when you have a teammate, you can target them all you want. You are not committing a crime. It
Right.
specifically says opponents.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the other side of that coin, though, too, Jeff, is you mentioned that it's going to ask people or encourage people to have more, single target interaction potentially, depending on what the benefits are. Some other people, though, might be like, I'm just going to go more broad with more board wipes, so I can't ever commit crimes. I'm going to add in more just broad board wipes so I don't ever commit crimes, because some of these are beneficial to not you, the player, the owner of the permanent. They might be potentially triggering off of that. And again, I think there's only 9 cards we have here that we see for spoilers. So the one that I'm going to kind of lean on a little bit, because it's the one I like and it's the one I'm kind of leaning towards actually purchasing for my Calamax deck, is the Sword of Wealth and Power.
First of all, what a great name for something for a Western. Like,
Yeah.
Wealth
it
and
is.
Power could go anywhere, but it really does resonate with the
The
Wild
Western
West.
motif. Yeah, absolutely. And so first off, when I saw this, I was like, this is going to be silly. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from instants and sorceries.
Oh my word, that's so good.
It's so niche and so
It is
weird.
better
it's,
than
it's not
indestructible.
niche. It's very powerful.
In a lot of instances,
Well, what I
that's
mean
better
is-
than indestructible.
Yeah, but again, this goes with the commit a crime, kind of thing, because now you can't be. This can't be the single target of something that's an instant or sorcery. And the other thing too is that's interesting about this is just instants and sorceries. Period. So even your own,
Right.
you can't even target it with, even
Which
if
is
it's
like Shroud. I mean,
yeah,
we're
it's
used to-
so it's Shroud in that sense.
But I mean, what pops to mind immediately that you're just protected from? And for me, it's Swords to Plowshares.
Path to Exile.
Yes, the two saviors. When
Yeah.
something has indestructible, okay, it's indestructible. I can still exile. Nope.
No, you can't target it. So, but the second part of this ability is also the reason why I really want to get it for my Calamax deck, which is my Spellslinger deck. It is whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. When you next cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So my Calamax deck, in case anyone doesn't know, when he's tapped, the first instant you cast each turn when he's tapped, you get to make a copy of it automatically. So if I swing with Calamax with this on him, the first spell I'm going to cast when he's tapped, that's an instant or sorcery, I will get 2 copies of. So I will have 3 of them hitting. And Duncan experienced a little bit of my Calamax deck power a couple weeks ago.
Experience, that's quite the word for it.
Yeah, it was a kerfuffle. Like I think we got up to, and we did it wrong.
Yeah.
We did it wrong. We had up to like 20 something, low 30 copies of a spell going off.
And it should have been more.
And it should have been more. So, but this is very much, I think the protection is cool because they've already done all the colors with the other swords. So now that they're getting to more specific stuff, this kind of makes me think that maybe they're going to make one that is protection from enchantments, protection from
Planeswalkers?
artifacts, protection from
Oh,
planeswalkers.
the fact that Oko is in this set, I really hope there's protection from Planeswalkers because, as I've stated before, the original Oko is my arch nemesis. I can't stand
Yeah, everyone hates
being
that Oko.
out.
It's stupid. But I think, so to finish up before Jeff takes over, so I think they're going to come out with some more swords is my prediction. And I think they're going to, much like this one, it's not going to be colors. It's more going to be card types that they're going to give you protection from. So that's my prediction. I think that we're going to get another set of swords. I think we're going to get a set of swords that are card type protection instead of color protection. And then I'm curious about what they're going to name them because, of course, the names that they already have are good. Fire and Ice. This one's really good. The Wealth and Power, I think, is pretty cool. So I'm curious to see what happens, but that's my prediction. I think we're gonna get another set of swords, and I think they're gonna be based off of card types.
So you don't think they're
protections.
just going to keep building on the swords they have, or when you say set, you mean like
So
a different way of making the swords? Because
So the original swords had like color combinations.
right. They had all like red and blue or green and black or whatever was their kind of protection. So I think this set of swords they're going to be based off of card type protection.
Okay.
So enchantment, artifact, planeswalker, creature. They might do something more like that based off of this first one that we're seeing.
I mean, that's
So,
a pretty good prediction, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
Before we dig down into what we see coming in the future, just to take a look, I know you mentioned that it was sort of odd to go with the, sort of cowboy theme here, the Western theme. The art seems fire on this, though. Like
I like the wanted poster looking art on
the
some of
wanted
them.
poster is amazing. The basic lands look
Yeah.
just awesome. This is a set that I thought when they announced it, I was like, yeah, I could do without this. But after looking at it, it's like I'm 100% going to
Just
buy
on a
this.
side note, the wanted poster thing, what is hilarious to me is about 3 months ago, going back to Andrew, kill Andrew first, everyone. He made for each player in our play group out there a wanted poster for them.
Oh, really?
And it's in a magic card form. And so like mine was wanted, his was wanted for too much value exploitation or something like that.
That's cool.
Yeah, mine was wanted for too much countering, I think, something like that. But
That's true.
so it's to me, it's almost like I'm not saying they stole in a bad way, but I feel like somehow they had like cameras and they caught this. They're like, yes, but they of course came up with this probably 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
2-3
Oh,
years
yeah.
ago. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But-
that's funny that happened.
Yeah,
And so this, I'm just very impressed with this artwork. And sometimes, it's a hit or miss sometimes.
Yeah,
but this,
absolutely.
they definitely hit. And this is a win, I think.
oh
And
yeah.
I think they did a good job too of redoing existing characters in that Western style.
Yeah, I'm putting a hat on them.
Well, even like their names, like Oko the ringleader, Tiny Bones the pickpocket. So they kind of did like this, Western
Bibble
style.
Thip, Lost on the Range.
Yeah.
That one's hilarious. Lost on the Range.
Yeah.
That's so great.
So I was thinking about it, and I think they will have duels, like dueling cards.
So kind of like the
That
fight
would be
card
cool.
mechanic.
I think it's going to be battles, right?
That would be very cool.
Think about battles, but it's duels.
Okay.
I think they could do that. I think that would be something that
where
they
you
might-
like dual single cards, like
Yeah.
your creature versus my creature.
Well,
they
no,
go
I'm
into a
thinking it's
duel
so
type
you
thing?
remember the battle cards from
do.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
enchantment battle cards.
So
yeah.
I think it'll be like that, but like it'll have something like when you go to attack it, maybe two creatures have to face off. Like the defending player has one creature, and you
That
can
would
only
be
have
pretty awesome.
one play. Like that might be something that they could play. Maybe it's not gonna be that, but I think like duels will play somewhere in the set, and that seems like the most logical.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I didn't even think of
Because
something
when
like
I
that.
think of westerns, I think of like the battle at the OK Corral, right?
Yeah. Well, the other thing too that I was thinking about that they may possibly do is we might get some more playing cards out of this. Because what's more planar shifty than moving to a Western motif, and you could get a planes called On the Range. You can get a plane called High Noon, or like so. There's a couple of different things too. I was thinking even
Well, except
like
that planes are literally other planes, but I could see, zones or something with those, or
maybe yeah.
maybe the day-night thing modified, which I really hope not. I really did not like the day-night. I hope that's not the way they go with it. But they could
No.
Yeah.
have day-night, high noon.
Yeah,
They could.
Yeah, High Noon, or Dusk and Dawn.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's a couple of different things.
Oh,
that
sort
could
of
do it.
dusk and dawn.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool.
That would be a good name.
That might be one in here. I don't know. They don't always. Sometimes they release two swords in one set.
They have before.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. I'm pretty sure they have. Yeah.
But
So-
looking at this set as of predictions, I mean, I'm not going to go out on a limb very far. I just want more of the same of this. I'm looking at this. This is awesome.
But is there going to be a pistol equipment?
See, that is something that I saw someone make a fake artifact equipment for, called an effing gun is I think what they called it. But obviously they didn't bleep it. They wrote it out. But
Oh.
I think artifact equipments, you might get some, kind of gunslinger stuff. Maybe even like again, if you wanted to really stick hard with the cowboy motif, cowboy hat, artifact equipment, does something. So you can.
Oh yeah, no, there will be a 10-gallon hat for sure.
10-gallon hat.
There will be a 10-gallon. I am putting money on that right now.
Except it's like a negative equipment. Like maybe you attach it to an opponent's thing. You tap it and it can't untap because it's a 10-gallon hat. It's too heavy.
I could also see them like reskinning Skull Clamp as a 10-gallon. I hope don't do that. Like I hope there's something.
But alternate art for it. Yeah, sure, I could see that. But I mean,
Secret Lair will be released probably with this too.
Yeah.
So I assume they'll do some stuff like that.
So there are a couple of the cards here that, obviously we haven't touched on really a lot of them yet. We just keep talking about how great they are. So one of them is this Duelist of the Mind. It's a 1 and a blue, Human Advisor, Flying Vigilance. Duelist of the Mind's power is equal to the number of cards you draw on this turn. So all of you card drawing, people out there that love drawing 16 cards a turn.
Yeah, because Sloan hates it. He does not like drawing cards.
I'm just saying, there's people who.
I mean, to be fair, out of the three of us, he's definitely not doing as much as we are.
Yeah, you guys draw cards way too much. I mean, this would go in your Gentaxias deck for sure.
Yeah,
because he would be like a 47-3. But then his second ability is whenever you commit a crime, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So they are doing the only once each turn thing again. And I think that's kind of their answer to pull down the power level a little bit, because they realize that some of the cards they've made in the past, not going to point any fingers at any specific cards, but they kind of get a little out of control if they're able to do it multiple times, as opposed to if they only do it once, it's not quite as bad. They did that same thing with Esper Sentinel. The first was it non-creature spell you cast.
Sometimes though, when they try and do that, they just nerf it so hard it's not worth doing.
Right.
Esper Sentinel is not that.
Yeah.
I will take Esper Sentinel, but
right. So, but this too, because one, like Jeff was saying, this encourages somebody to commit a crime. So you're going to target an opponent's thing.
not in real life, people.
Yeah, not please don't do something in real life and blame us. Say this podcast I listened to that has 3 viewers told us to commit a crime. We're not saying that. So,
but if you do that, put it on YouTube.
Yeah,
please.
make sure you
you give us credit.
Commander's Pod. But so this encourages you to have that single target interaction. So then you get to draw. Now you do have to discard, so you're not technically replacing the card because you do have to discard. But at the very least, you're getting draw. You're getting to sculpt your hand, which is still at the end of the day better than not being able to do anything. So, they are encouraging that.
I don't think, that was a good card to highlight.
Yeah.
I also think, I'm not going to go over the whole card, but as the Oko player, because I love Oko, I think this Oko is not bad.
Yeah, but when you compare him to the original,
yeah, nothing.
It's kind of underwhelming. But thank you.
I don't know.
I mean, please, I need underwhelming.
His art looks awesome, so I'm 100% getting him. I don't know if he's good.
He does have he is one that has the wanted poster art too, and his wanted poster art is pretty sick.
Yeah, I might want to collect the wanted poster arts.
I will say this Tiny Bone too, this Skeleton Rogue Tiny Bone, Death Touch, 1 black, 1/1. He's a legendary creature, Skeleton Rogue. Whenever Tiny Bones the pocket deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target non-land permanent card from that player's graveyard, and mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell. So this is I'm going to sling stuff from your graveyard, and so this would go good in some of your mill decks. Jeff has a rogue deck, I believe.
Yeah.
He said that he would love to throw this in.
It's 1 mana.
And it's 1 mana.
And it has Death Touch.
Yeah.
You mean his not a mill deck that mills?
Stupid powerful.
Exactly, yeah. His not a mill deck that mills.
It is not a mill deck.
His rogue mill deck.
But for predictions, right?
Yeah.
So if they have committed crime, they're going to have jail.
I think maybe. I think they might even have. They could even do something like on like the more of like if you're committing a crime, then maybe like prevent a crime. They have like if it's someone's going to commit a crime and you like maybe keep that interaction from happening, then you prevent a crime and something happens. Like they could do all kinds of silly things.
We're also missing, like, if there's commit a crime in there that's encouraging interaction, I'm really excited to see what interaction might be in there.
Yeah, it's true. Because
I think it's really good. Some of the interaction we've had before, Hull Breacher, we talked about in one of the other podcasts, it discourages card draw, and there's some that discourage tutoring, but typically a lot of them are way too powerful. I'm wondering if they could have some interaction that would be sort of like where they put that caveat at the end that you just read where it says once per turn.
Yeah.
So if they could do something that stops tutoring, but doesn't necessarily stop it everywhere, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, like
because the
the first
tutoring
time
stopping also stops you from like, going and sacking a land and fetching a land, right? And I don't think that was ever the intent of those type of cards. So I'd love to see some better interaction that's not completely game breaking.
Yeah, I think because there are some things that right now, I don't know any of them because I didn't even think of this, but there are some that are like the first time a player would do something, prevent it, right? So
Yeah.
there are some cards that say the first instant a player would cast.
How about the other Jenga taxis?
Okay, yeah.
First time opponents would cast an instant sorcery or artifact.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
the
again,
counter.
he's pretty expensive, so I would love to see some sort of interaction that interacts with it.
So I hate to burst your bubble, but I just realized that the committing a crime is on the target. It does not have to succeed. So they've already committed the crime.
Right. Even
So
if
it couldn't be prevent a crime. It might be something else.
maybe. I mean, there's like you said too. Jail might be one where.
Yeah. Well,
something
so
like
what
that.
would jail be though? Is it like phasing them out or exiling them or
You
is
guys want more? You guys want more of these type of new things where we have to understand a whole nother mechanic?
No, I'm not saying a new thing, but
We're-
I'm saying they could face oubliette
Yeah,
and
they
call
could,
it jail.
Yeah, they could call it. Send them to jail, and it's just a re-art or whatever. Of
Yeah.
Oh, I think
I'd
they might
prefer
do that. So
something
you're talking
new.
like Secret Lair.
Yeah,
They
or
could
it could
do
just
that,
be
or-
a jail is an artifact that comes into or a land that comes into play, and when it does, you can exile target creature.
Yeah, like
that
a
committed a
banishing
crime.
light. Yeah, like a banishing light or Oblivion Ring or the enchantments that
Right.
come into play and they
Or
exile
ooh,
until they leave.
what if it can put in jail original Oko when it targets your thing? Oh, that
Do
would
you-
make me so happy.
Do you think because kids play this game, they can't put like alcohol in here? Because obviously, like Westerns is very sort of built around like
Whiskey.
whiskey and
I
stuff.
think they could put alcohol.
That
in
would
there.
be funny. Like the food. Oh, because the food tokens, if they're created in this, they can make a new food token and it could have like a bar with the different types
Yeah.
of whiskey and stuff.
Yeah.
That would be pretty baller.
Yeah, so I think now that we've seen some of the cards, I mean, I'm a little more excited for the set for sure, and I definitely, like I said, I want that sword, the one that they leaked, because that and Calamax is gonna be silly. I already do silly things with that deck, so
I want these lands.
yeah, the lands are gorgeous, by the way. So just so you guys kind of have again non-visual podcast, so we apologize, but like some of the lands, the art, they have the picture of what the land is in it. So the swamp has like a skull in the ground with like the swamp. In a swamp, the plains has the clouds in the shape of the plains.
I mean, you
symbol.
can go to mythicspoiler.com and look them up right now.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Look them up. But they're so far the art's really cool, and the idea is, at least in these cards that we're getting a spoiler look at, a sneak preview, are very cool. And I definitely think that, like Jeff is saying, they're going to definitely encourage more single target interaction. They're trying to get people to do that. And I'm curious on if they're going to, like Jeff said again, make special cards to really help people do that. Like maybe even, when you cast this, spell, it commits a crime, and it's a card that would commit a crime, so you can do it twice.
Right.
So you get 2 interactions of that off of cards.
Well, I'm
'Cause-
sure there's plenty of ways that people can break it without even them trying. So I'm sure
Yeah.
we can get double triggers. So I'm not too worried about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's going to be a fun set.
For sure.
I think we're all looking forward to it. We'll see how close we come on our predictions in about a month.
Yeah,
But-
if I get the sword prediction right, by the way, I feel like you guys should buy me all the
Well,
swords.
I think
then
you
give
and
them
I
to
had
me.
already talked about this before. So,
Well, listen, I'm just saying,
but
if I get it right, I'm going to say, here, I'll even make it more specific. I think they're going to make 3 swords. And I
okay,
think-
so if you are right and they make 3 swords,
if they make exactly
I don't
3
think
swords,
they're going to drib and drab those out throughout.
I
Several
think they're going to
sets.
make 3.
Not in this set. Not in
Yeah,
this set. Well,
whatever.
but anyway, so now let's move on to our section called Counterspell, where we kind of put a subject up for debate among the 3 of us. Today's subject is land destruction.
Yeah.
Is it okay? And if so, in what quantity?
I mean, I'll say my answer first because I'm curious on what you guys are going to say. It's in the game. It's okay. It's part of the game of Magic.
Well,
when they made it originally, probably didn't realize what they were doing. They didn't realize.
Oh no, they
how-
100% did.
I don't. Think
It just
they did.
wasn't
Because again, they did it when the game first started, like in the 90s, and like everyone was playing like monocolored decks, and there was like maybe a couple of them, and then they kind of kept growing it, and then they didn't.
It was worse in the beginning. There weren't as many mana rocks.
Yeah, again, I understand that, but there weren't nearly as many land destruction cards either. There was like 2.
What do you think, Jeff?
I think that it's really easy to say if it's in the game, it should be allowed. But unfortunately, the people who decide on what's in the game have been very clear that there's a rule 0 conversation that happens for people.
Sure.
And they're not banning these cards because the community has decided in general not to play mass land destruction. I believe if tomorrow it became acceptable to mass land destruction all the time, the RC would quickly have to move to banning it. I don't think it would last a day. If all of a sudden, sort of like Hull Breacher, it started getting used a lot, if that happened with land destruction, it'd be banned. The reason why it doesn't get banned is because people don't play it.
I disagree. Not to the concept. I don't think land destruction is bad. I don't like it a lot. I think it really needs to be done correctly.
Well,
there are good ways and bad ways. If you're resetting the game, that's not. But as far as like Wizards, like kind of like stepping back and saying, well, it's up to you guys, but if you can't handle it, no.
It's not.
They
even,
just reprinted.
Don't forget,
land
it's not
destruction.
Wizards, right? So Wizards has stepped out of making the rules for Commander.
For Commander, no, they never stepped in. It was never theirs. To begin with.
They don't do it.
But I'm saying,
and I'm not saying
it's not just about Commander. It's about the other formats.
Yeah,
they print the cards, and they just reprinted Ravages of War in Fallout, and that is Armageddon pretty much. But a second card now you can have in a white deck that does the exact same thing for the exact same cost.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too is you guys are talking about mass land destruction. There's not a lot of cards that actually do mass land.
But
destruction.
they just reprinted one. Like they're making them available.
They reprinted one, but it's not like for example cards that wheel, which is why they banned Hull Breacher, right? Because there are so many cards that wheel.
There are actually a lot of cards of mass land destruction.
Yes.
Red alone has
there are a lot.
2 I can think of off the top of my head.
Yep.
I guarantee there's
Yeah,
more.
but-
And one of them's real bad. Jockle Hops. That's everything.
Right, but my point is that I don't think there is as much of a dominance scene for mass land destruction in the game of Magic in regards to how many resources you have available to you to make it happen.
Only because
As opposed to other cards that were banned, going back to Hull Breacher, because of how readily available there are cards to boost his ability. And my big point is if you want to play it, go for it. Fine, be that guy. I mean, have fun with it if that's what you want to do. Ultimately, though, again, I think it's fine. Like Duncan and like Jeff, I don't play it. I don't do it myself. It's one of those It's one of those types of gameplay that I don't enjoy. I had a land destruction based deck once, and you play it one time, and people get real salty real quick when you keep blowing up their lands, and so you're like, maybe I'm gonna stop playing this.
Well, and when we first were really getting big into Commander, I'm not talking about when we first started, the three of us, but we were really sitting down more regularly and playing. Jeff had a deck that had a just single land destruction, and I got real bent out of shape about it. I was like, no, that's not, because he could keep doing it every turn, and all he had to do was pay 2 and a green when the thing attacked or whatever, and it would destroy a land. And I was like, that's deliberately just going after it. And at the time, I was like, it really felt unfair based on the power levels of our decks. Now, if he were to pull that out, I'd be like, all right, go ahead. Like, at least it's not all my lands.
Yeah, I think we do have to differentiate also mass land destruction to single target land destruction. And I think the card you're talking about, it really falls in between, but I think it heads more towards the mass land destruction because you could keep doing it.
Yeah.
But single target land destruction, most people don't have a problem with that because someone tosses down a guy's cradle, or even Growing Rights of Itlamok that becomes a guy's cradle.
Or Cabal's Coffer.
Cabal Coffer. You have to be able to remove those things. And I don't think anyone really has a problem with that.
I do remember. Do you remember the game? I know you do because we've talked about it a lot, where we were playing with David and he played Pact of Negation.
Yeah.
And you used single target land destruction to make sure he had one less land than he needed to be able to pay for that.
Yeah, those are good plays. I don't think very many people would get upset about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we're really talking about, mass land destruction, and I think you said it earlier, Duncan, where it's like, if you're going to win the game and mass land destruction is how you got there, yeah, there are going to be people that are salty because they think they have a right to get upset because there's this unwritten rule that you're not allowed to do it. I think most reasonable people, though, it's like, okay, you won. What's the difference if you won that way or any other way that's just annoying and possibly salt-inducing? They won.
Yeah.
The issue becomes when you're using mass land destruction to just reset the game. And for me, I think we're also heading into the area of how is that any different than farewell? Okay?
Right.
So you go, all right, well, land destruction is bad because it resets the game. Well, farewell's bad because it resets the game.
Well, but you still have your mana. If you have a fistful of cards on your turn, you drop them all down.
You
when your
can.
mana's gone,
Yeah, when your mana's gone, you've halted
it's
the entire
usually
game.
not done when everybody has a good board state. It's usually done when one player has an advantage and they think, okay, now I'm going to prevent you guys from being
Yeah,
able
and
to
if they're
catch
going
up.
to dirtle for the rest of the way and they don't really have a win right there, it's annoying. But even with farewell, if someone happens to be not a green player, right? They might not have but 3 or 4 lands.
Well,
And
and
they
the
have a
other-
whole bunch of mana rocks. They're done.
Yeah.
Right. But that again, I'm just saying, I do feel like there's a very big difference in the two. I do not feel like those are comparable.
I mean, ultimately, in my perspective is if you're going to bring that type of deck to the table, just let people know, hey, this is a land destruction deck. The way I win is I get rid of your resources, I keep my own, and then that allows me to
Well,
get to my combo and I win.
I don't think you
whether
need to
it's
tip
through-
your hand that much, but just tell them at least you have it in there.
Yeah, well,
Say, I
'cause-
do have mass land
Well, to
destruction
give you
in
an
here.
idea of who I'm talking about, I had he's a dragon, I think it's Nazmut or something like that. He's 2, a red, white, and a blue. And whenever he attacks, you can pay 2 and a red. And if you do, you can destroy 2 target lands of defending player on his attack trigger, right? So that was the guy I made. He was red, white, and blue in those colors, like Duncan mentioned. Red has some good land destruction, white has some good land destruction. And so basically what I would do is I would swing with him and I try to get multiple instances of his trigger, allowing me to blow up 4 of their lands to really set them back. And I would do multiple attacks and stuff like that. And so, essentially I would slow everybody else down until I got to the point where I'm just like killing everybody with commander damage or I had a combo that would go off. But again, it's single target, quote unquote, but I was able to do it multiple times and such. And so, no, I didn't realize because that was one of the first decks I ever built, and that was at a different card shop when I lived elsewhere. I didn't realize how salt-inducing land destruction was until I started doing it. So I took apart the deck, and I still have that guy as a card, and I always get a little bit of an itch of like, well, maybe I can play him and it won't be too bad. But it's just like one of those things where most people don't enjoy it. They don't want to be a part of it. You can house zero rule it, whatever you want to do. But I mean, ultimately, if you're going in a lot of my kind of, I guess, end all points come to this, if you're going into a tournament and you want to win that tournament and you think you can win with a land destruction deck, go for it. Like, it's a tournament. People should understand that's where you're going to.
I don't think that's really what we're discussing.
Right,
Though. It's
but-
not a matter of if you're a competitive setting.
No, but he said in general, is land destruction okay? So in general, you have to take all of the game formats that are available to you, whether it's casual or competitive. Yeah, it's okay. It's a way to win the game. If you don't
But
like
we're
it,
specifically
house
talking
zero
about
it.
Commander.
Yeah, I'm talking
If
about
you're
Commander
sitting
too,
down
yeah.
at a table, do you want to see it?
I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, it comes down to the first time that happens, it will never happen again. I will make sure that person dies or I counter everything that person controls because when you keep letting it happen, at that point, it's just on you. Like, you're the one who keeps letting him do it. Figure out a way to stop it. Well, my deck doesn't interact that way. Well, you might want to either pull out a different deck or rebuild your deck or figure out a way to deal with it.
The thing that confuses me about it is there are 1,000 different types of decks you can make.
Sure.
Why make that one that's going to affect other people having a good time? Just don't do it. I just don't understand it. Like, we're playing a casual game where you want other people to also have fun and get to do things. If you take away their source of doing things, they're not going to have fun. Just there's 1,000 different archetypes to build.
Well,
Build something
I mean,
else.
so now we're talking about if you have a deck that is your theme, that you're going to try and repeatedly like make sure people do not have lands.
Yeah.
That is something 100% you need to say up front. Say this deck is built to make sure you don't have lands. You cannot go into a game and just expect people to figure it out as you go. You're gonna get hated right off that table.
Yeah, because look, those of us who play
Sure.
a lot, right? We can deal with it. Someone wants to bring out a stacks deck or whatever, we can work our way through it. The problem is a newer player will not know how to. And for me, it's just like there are so many options for building decks. Just why? Unless you're doing, if the only way I can understand it is if you enjoy stopping other people from getting to do things. And there's a level at which that becomes a problem. Like if you like to counter stuff, you like to interact, you're fine. If you enjoy them never getting to do anything, that you're going to play that deck. Yes, let people know. Please don't play it very often.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to do it just for fun one time, just
Yeah.
to see if you can do it, and you have a group of friends that are all down for that and they know what you're going to do and they're like, well, we don't like it, but we will let you do it this once. That's different. But
Yeah.
I mean, the bottom line is this is going to come down to you and your play group and what
Yeah.
you guys decide. This was just kind of our opinions,
Yeah.
what we think of the idea, where it's good, where it's not, what's acceptable. But everybody, you can make your own way of doing it and your own rules at the table. Just be upfront about where you are versus where they are.
Yeah,
That's all. With everything, it's the same thing in Commander.
Yeah, I think ultimately you're going to a casual game. Let people know, hey, this is a land destruction deck. That's how it wins. You're going to a competitive scene. Don't tell anybody. Blow up all their lands. Be that guy.
Sure.
Be evil.
But I mean,
Yeah.
competitive EDH, it's a different animal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
it
one
is.
would
It
complain.
really is.
And then the last thing
So-
is we've talked about a lot of times about getting better friends, right?
Yeah.
So just as you're making these decisions, think, do you want to be that guy who's getting replaced? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
If I knew that how easy it was, I'm building a land deck tonight, land destruction deck tonight,
There you go.
and I'm gonna get replaced.
Oh,
I'm gonna find better friends.
So
There you go. Good plan.
not really a smooth transition after that one. After that,
well, we were
little
talking
statement.
about new players. So
That's true. So, what pro tips do we have for new players today, Sloan?
Yeah, so I was thinking back on when I first started playing Magic, and I was like, people keep saying things like I know what.
Oh,
they're
how
talking
dare they
about.
say things?
Like they know what like they're talking about, and I just kind of nod along like an idiot because it's like, yeah, sure, yeah, okay, I get that, yeah, and I'm like, I have no
That
idea
makes
what
a
that
lot
means.
of
I'm still
sense.
waiting to see how it's different from now. I just don't.
Yeah.
So I came up with, so this is going to be a segment inside of a segment. This is going to be called Learning the Lingo. So these are 5 commonly used terms that we've used and that we've said, and maybe we've not quite fully explained what they are and what they do. So I just got 5 terms here that I'm going to go over and kind of explain. We're going to go over what the actual ruling is and what the actual definition of them according to Magic is, and just kind of put them out there so that way as you're learning how to play the game, these terms are things that you'll probably hear at the table constantly, and you won't feel like you're left out of the loop not knowing what they mean. So first one's going to be summoning sickness. And in regards to summoning sickness, this is something that specifically is going to be directed towards creatures. So summoning sickness is a creature with summoning sickness is neither able to attack nor use any tap ability. So when a creature first comes out into play, if it doesn't have an ability called haste, it has summoning sickness. It's able to block or defend unless it comes in tapped, but it can't actually attack without something giving it the ability to attack on the turn it comes out. Also, creatures that have tapped abilities can't use them when they first come out. So summoning sickness is just their way of slowing.
Right. And it's something that does trip up new players. That doesn't mean they can't use non-tap activated abilities.
Correct. So there's a difference between tapped activated abilities, which have the little arrow, and non-tapped, which just have the colon next to them. So if it's a activated ability, meaning it has to be tapped, a tapped activated ability can't be used. But other abilities, I believe the new guy I just built, Commander Mustard, has a 2 red and a white ability. He doesn't have to tap to do it, so I can do it on the first turn he comes out, where he buffs my creatures and does things for them. So that's going to be your summoning sickness. Your second one is priority. This one is one that
we actually have some articles up on our website, commanderspod.com, that
Mhm.
really goes into priority and when you get it and how you get it.
Right.
I really suggest that new players take a look at that. We have kind of 3 different articles going over the 3 levels of it because it can get pretty interactive.
Right. And so what priority is, in, again, a very toned down and straightforward definition from Magic the Gathering, is 1, when a player plays a spell or ability, that player has priority at that time. And then 2, when a spell resolves, the active player, the player whose turn it is, gets priority back. And then the third thing, the thing on top of the stack resolves when both players pass in a row the priority. So this is something, a combo that's very commonly found in Magic right now, especially in the Commander format, is the Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation combo.
Gross.
Right. Every blue-black somewhat competitive deck pretty much has it in there because it's an instant win. But essentially, it utilizes holding and maintaining priority on the stack. And so essentially, if I'm casting a spell, if I don't say I'm going to maintain priority to cast another spell, it immediately goes to the next player in the turn order.
And to be clear, you can only cast instant sorceries and abilities that activate at those speeds.
Correct. So
to hold priority.
Yeah,
you can't
so-
cast a sorcery or another creature or an enchantment unless they have flash.
Right. So holding priority means that you then have to cast something in that instant speed, essentially, to allow it to go on the stack and then continue. So there are combos where you intentionally do that. Again, Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation is the most notorious one right now that we've all seen happen to us and been played out. So priority is something, again, like Duncan said, it's really more in depth than that, but that's a very brief
Go and read the articles, but
oversimplification.
essentially you cannot take priority.
Correct.
It has to be passed.
Correct.
And you can't just do things whenever you want.
Right,
There is an
and
order.
when you get into the 4-player pods you do for commander and you start doing this, priority rotation is very important because you might have an answer, but you're the third one in the order for priority, and you might not want to say you have an answer because the person first or second in priority order might actually have an answer and use their answer instead. So you want to make sure that you're not jumping ahead in priority and you're not doing that. So it is something, especially when you get into more complex games and stuff, priority becomes a little bit bigger of a instance and occurrence in those games.
If you become, the better you become at priority, the better Magic player you're going to play.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, it is one of the biggest attributes I can point out to say that's where you want to focus your attention.
Yeah.
If you want to be better, learn priority.
Right. So this next one actually kind of builds off of that, which is split second. So this one I brought up and I thought about because we all actually had it wrong for the longest time. We were doing it incorrectly. But as the infamous saying goes in Magic, reading the card explains the card. So split second
Sometimes.
is... Well, with these 16 new abilities that come out every set, it's a little bit more difficult than that. But split second is a static ability that functions only while the spell with split second is on the stack. So what that means is Crows and Grip is the one that we used to always get wrong when we played it, which is a split second destroy target. I think enchantment is what it does.
Or artifact.
Or artifact. Well, the way it's supposed to work is if I cast something and someone with the Crows and Grip then casts it, the way we used to do it was, well, the whole stack resolves because we can no longer interact with the stack because he did that split second, which is incorrect. Only that card cannot be interacted with. So as soon as he casts Crows and Grip, we have to stop pretty much everything, let Crows and Grip resolve, and then we can maintain the stack afterwards. But
by the way, I'm still waiting for a split second counter spell.
right, yeah,
I want it so bad.
that would be gross. But Crows and Grip was the one that we always kind of got wrong. But what that does is, again, is that one instant or card, it should be an instant card, but that one card basically pauses the stack until
nothing can be put above it on the
nothing can be
stack.
put above it on the stack until it resolves. Not the whole stack, just that one card that has split second on it. Once that one card resolves, then the stack can go back to being...
Well, and then it goes back to priority.
It goes back to priority, and it goes back to...
And then once priority passes, then it goes back to the stack.
Correct. So split second. The next one, and I picked this one because this is something that I do a lot, is infinite combo. So infinite combo in Magic is something that basically loops infinitely and
with no interaction or very little interaction.
Yeah, either, essentially the way it's usually used in our format is if I do this, it's going to loop infinitely and it will end the game. So the big one that I used to run a lot was the 2 black enchantments, Sanguine Bond and Exsanguinate. So one of them says whenever you gain life, target opponent loses life, and then the other one says whenever an opponent loses life, you gain life.
Actually, it's sanguination, right? Because exsanguinate's targeted anyway.
Yeah. So basically what you do is you make someone lose 1 life, and then those 2 go on the stack infinitely, and you just keep draining people for all of their life if no one can interact with it.
But you could have an infinite combo that doesn't win the game. So
yeah,
like
absolutely.
Squirrels with Earthcraft, so where you just make infinite amount of squirrels,
Right.
but you still don't win.
So-
and then on someone else's turn they board wipe.
So technically, what you can do with an infinite combo, which is a part that we don't like to do in our play group and we try not to do, is technically speaking, if you are making infinite squirrels and no one can stop you, you actually can make the game draw because you just say, I just keep making squirrels and I never stop making squirrels. And you never pass to your next turn. You never move on. And it literally makes the game just draw because no one can do anything because you're just sitting there making squirrels constantly.
Yeah, we just choose like 100,000.
Yeah.
We made
So
100,000.
so that
squirrels,
is a
move on.
non-interactive squirrel, or you choose not to.
You choose
stop it.
not to stop it. And that is an infinite combo. And it literally makes the game end in a draw
Right.
because no one can do anything. And the game just...
More than likely, what happens in our scenario is we say, okay, well now I have what's called 5 million squirrels.
Right.
Do you guys want to continue with the game?
Right. And so, so infinite combos have a couple different iterations from basically making the game go to a draw to actually having it win you the game, or you have a infinite combo that you can control and stop that allows you to then win the game or put yourself very, 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 very ahead. Another combo that a lot of people do is with Niv Mizzet, the dragon who says whenever a player casts a spell, you draw a card, and whenever you draw a card, deal 1 damage to a target. A lot of people do combos with that where I get to draw a card, I deal 1 damage because I deal 1 damage to you. I get to draw a card because I draw a card, I get to do 1 damage. That one infinitely loops until you run out of cards in your library, so you could potentially kill yourself. But it's another one that kind of goes off of that infinite combo, quote unquote, style. And then the last one here that I have is instant speed. So this one's a more basic terminology that we see a lot. And instant speed is named after cards with instant, which are cards that can be played at any time
That you have priority.
that you have priority. They don't require it to be your turn. They don't require anything else except for you to have priority to cast them, and obviously the correct mana to be able to cast that spell. So most infamously, everything that has instant speed is counterspells. That's kind of the big thing is counterspells are instant speed. So someone casts a spell, they pass priority to you. You then have the choice to counter it with counterspell if you have one in your hand. So
Flash is another one that's
Right,
done
so
at instant speed.
bringing up the other things that are technically instant speed is Flash, is instant speed. And you have creatures, artifacts, enchantments. Now you have a lot of stuff that has Flash that lets you cast it as if it had instant.
Teferi, Master of Time, is able to do your Planeswalker abilities at instant speed.
Right, and then you have a Leyline of Anticipation, which is an enchantment that allows you to cast cards.
Things as if they had Flash.
Things as if they had Flash. So,
There's
but instant
Planeswalkers
speed.
that lets you cast creatures with flash. There's a lot of stuff that does it. There's
Right.
an
Right.
artifact.
So whenever someone says, "Hey, this is going to let me cast this at instant speed," that's what they're referring to. They're talking about I can now cast this as though it was an instant, i.e. instant speed. So
Right.
those are 5 terminologies. that you
One
hear.
odd one that people don't realize is instant speed is Lion's Eye Diamond. You see it in CEDH a lot,
Yeah.
and they've changed the rules several times on how these things work. But Lion's Eye Diamond can only be activated at instant speed, even though it's a mana ability.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so those are 5 learning the lingos. Those are terms and words that you're going to hear a lot thrown around the table of any, not just Commander game, but Magic game in general. And so those are a couple of things that I found getting good definitions of would help you understand how to interact with the game and how to get better at playing the game. So that's my pro tips for beginner players.
So that's going to wrap us up for today. You can find out more about a lot of these subjects by going to commanderspod.com. You can find us on the web in many places. We also like to thank our producer, Jack May, for all the hard work he puts in.
Thank you, Jack.
And remember, folks, kill Andrew first.